Sign up today for a 7-day free trial at alerts.chartguys.com. Hey everyone, checking in on the crypto space. It's a busy day out there in the stock world the last 2 days. We're going to look at Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, XRP, BNB. I'm using a different screen, so I'm not going to be staring into your souls like I pretend to do in my other videos. But one thing that I want to mention that I tweeted on social media is the shift of capital from traditional markets to cryptocurrency. And until that shift of capital becomes very easy, we're not going to see significant correlations, in my opinion. But as soon as that becomes easy, and as soon as you are able to buy Bitcoin or sell Bitcoin and buy a stock within 5 minutes, the correlations between traditional markets and the cryptocurrency space will instantly exponentially increase when that happens. Yes, I know Robinhood allows that right now. In my opinion, Robinhood is not for serious traders. They're trying to get there, but we have a chat room of over 1,000 people, and I don't know anybody that's on Robinhood and trading with 6 figures. So there's not a lot of money there. It's geared towards people who are just getting into that space as opposed to a seasoned trader with large capital. So that's not what we're looking for. But it's a sense, what we're looking at is shifting of capital. So the market was dumping in an oversold conditions, the S&P 500, and I had a friend who was selling their Bitcoin and putting it into Tesla, which is extremely oversold on every single time frame. And that's something that I would be doing as well. Bitcoin losing the daily uptrend, I'm taking my money out of Bitcoin and I'm putting it into work in the market in oversold conditions. And right now we have Tesla's up 6% on the day and Netflix bounced 5%. So having that free-flowing capital between those two spaces will be significant, which is why everybody's looking at, Fidelity and these other institutions to get involved and make that ease of access, not only for buying and selling. And just an example, I have a friend who just gave birth to their second baby, and I like to gift things in the investment world to those children for 16, 18 years down the road. So their first child, I bought shares of a Canadian marijuana company. And I'm not going to buy them cryptocurrency. I would love to. The people that I have bought cryptocurrency for, I buy it and I hold it. Because for me to try to explain to somebody who's not financially savvy how to set up their wallet and how to keep track of it and all that, it's just a headache. They just had a child and they're not going to do it. It's going to be a burden on them. So having the ease, I can just say, here, I can, make this account with a username and password on a brokerage account, and you can have that made in less than 10 minutes, and I can transfer you shares of this company very easily. So it's just ease of access that we're still waiting on for the world, but once we have that ease of access of transition of capital, keep an eye out, because that's when correlations are going to significantly increase, and then that's when we're going to be watching for perhaps the inverse correlation to the markets. As far as a safe haven, I think it'll be much more the case. So that was just a little bit of a rant and tangent. What's more prevalent right now is the fact that we have lost the Bitcoin daily uptrend for the first time in months. And what that does is it shifts the time frames that we're looking for oversold bounces on. When you're in a strong uptrend in 2017, 5-minute oversold dips on the way up was free money. On this most recent uptrend, 15-minute oversold climaxes from the alert system, 4 out of 5 times were money. Then it shifted a little bit. Hourly oversold bounces, the last few times we saw them, were money. Now we have lost the daily uptrend. That means oversold timeframes are going to get more extended. So the 15-minute RSI, where it used to bounce at 25, we can easily drop down to the teens. And the reason now is we're focusing on 4-hour oversold bounces. So the 4-hour time frame just reached oversold conditions yesterday for the first time since we were in the 3000s. That's a very long time. I had to double check that 3 times. But the 4-hour RSI was last oversold. We touched it right there, but really the last time it was clearly under 30 was down here under 4,000. So we saw the pullback yesterday, and now we're seeing the follow through for bears. So initially with the dump yesterday and the bounce attempt, we were going to say, okay, the daily time frame has changed the trend, and if the bears don't get any follow through, that's when we zoom out and look for the potential of a weekly bull flag. Well, now the bears are getting their follow through. That 4-hour lower high and lower low, it's not really something we've seen recently. And look at the clear shift in momentum with these little 4-hour bear flags now. When's the last time we've seen a 4-hour bear flag follow through in the cryptocurrency space? And I couldn't tell you when that was, but it's been a very long time. So it's just a shift. A loss of the daily uptrend shifts what we're focused on to be looking for entry signals, but also to be looking at who has the momentum. And clearly the bears have the trend now on the 4-hour time frame. And we can say with this most recent dump, the 4-hour RSI is down at 24. Anything under $8,017 will just be a lower high. And it was a scenario where we changed the hourly trend and got no follow through. Here's a little hourly higher low and higher high. We did not break the high of the bounce, 8,025. Let's look at it on the 15-minute time frame. That was the highest price that the bounce hit, and we double topped, and then we triple topped, and then the bears took back over again. So it is now bears in complete control of these shorter term time frames, but the bulls are certainly anticipating a weekly higher low to form. There is a gap in the futures let's get that up real quick, because this is a general target that I have for a potential weekly higher low to form. And there is a gap if you look on some of the shorter term time frames. It's down in the 7,000s right here. 7,185 is a gap that did not fill, and it's present on a bunch of time frames. It's not there on the daily, but it's here on the 4-hour, it's on the 12-hour. So that is a potential target to be scouting. And anything really, let's say on the weekly time frame, now what we're looking for on the weekly is, are we going to see weekly continuation with a higher low and higher high, or a weekly equilibrium? The more we pull back from here, the more likely a weekly equilibrium will be. I will say that if we hold 7,000, then the odds of continuation will still be fairly high. I would say if we break 7,000, then the odds of the equilibrium then take the more likely scenario. I'll be watching the weekly exponential as support after acting as resistance on the way down. That's still a ways away. We're currently at 6,400, and by next week it would be up around 6,600, but that's a potential target to have as well. And if it takes a couple weeks to pull back here, then that might line up closer towards that gap, although it's going to take a while for that exponential moving average to catch up. So the bottom line is, bulls need to be a lot more patient and a lot more picky playing these oversold bounces. And just yesterday, that's what I was doing. I saw the Bitcoin dump, and I said, I am not interested in this bounce unless we break 8,000 and get that flush. So we did see that short-term bounce, but again, didn't get a lot of follow-through. So the bears are in control. We're watching the 4-hour downtrend. If we see a change in the 4-hour trend for Bitcoin, we're going to zoom out to the daily chart, and we're going to know that anything under 88.65 is just a daily lower high. So just like that, everything changes in this space. And I'm on the futures, so I need to change that back. Let's get that level on Coinbase. It's 88.34. Anything under that level is just a daily lower high. So we are currently in consolidation mode. When the daily trend changes back to the bulls, that is the first indication that our weekly higher low has been set. That's not going to happen anytime soon, but that's what we're keeping an eye out for. So for me personally, I'll be interested if the 4-hour RSI gets down in the teens. I'll start scaling in for an oversold bounce. But other than that, I'm being very picky and patiently waiting for a weekly higher low to form, now that the momentum has clearly shifted from the bulls being in full control for about 6 weeks to the bears now having the most control that they've had in a few months. So, to summarize, we'll look at the other names in just a second, but shift your time frame. Oversold bounces on the 15-minute time frame, we don't want to be looking at those in a daily downtrend. So the daily chart is a lower high and a lower low. We're now in a downtrend. So 15-minute RSI, I don't care about it. Hourly RSI, I'll peek at it, but it's now the 4-hour and the daily RSI that are the most important to me. And bears are now confident in getting into entries, looking for those lower highs to form. Ethereum has not broken the low just yet. So that low was 235.44, 235.44. We're coming down to that level right now. And I would say, you could say that we've lost the uptrend, but we haven't confirmed the downtrend until that level breaks, because the lower high and then the lower low confirms the downtrend. 231.12, 222.88 comes after that. And the longer term timeframes are what are important now, as we are seeing weekly consolidation. And if we break 235.44, the weekly consolidation will be underway for Ethereum, and we'll be watching the lower $200. Again, the exponential resistances are just a rough visual guide that I'm looking at, and I'll be watching the lower 200s over the next couple of weeks if we keep pulling back for Ethereum. If we're looking for weekly higher lows and the daily RSI gets oversold, that's the ideal scenario to begin scaling into a trade, because we have the longer term uptrend in our favor and the shorter term time frames extremely oversold. So that'll certainly get my attention if we get there. And for Bitcoin to see daily oversold this week, we would probably need to drop down under 7,000 to get down close to that RSI 30 level. So I don't think that's going to happen, but it would certainly get my interest if it did. So Ethereum, 4 hour, just a lower high being set. Bear flag confirmed, though not a whole lot of follow through at this point. And I assume that means the ETH BTC chart we're about to look at has some bullish action. But anything under 251 is just a lower high on Ethereum. Change the 4 hour trend, and we're going to zoom out to the daily and just look for a daily lower high to form. And we'll certainly be keeping an eye on the volume here to see what the bears can do. There we have the bull move on ETH BTC, making sense. Could see it just in the charts alone. How could I tell? Because ETH did not clearly break below its 4 hour lower low, whereas Bitcoin very clearly broke below its 4 hour low. So we have a nice equilibrium here. This is definitely one to watch for the next 2 days on the ETH BTC chart. Whether you're looking bullish or bearish, you want to know how this pattern is going to break. Let's condense it a little bit for clarity. 12-hour time frame. High, low, lower high, higher low. Anything under 321 is a lower high. We could stay in this tightening equilibrium for another 3 days, really. So we'll keep an eye on it. If this pattern were to break bullish, bears would want to be shorting BTC over ETH. If this pattern breaks bearish, the bears would want to be shorting ETH over BTC. So this pattern, how it breaks, will have some implications in the short term. Litecoin. Pulling back, we have a little daily lower high and lower low. 4 hour time frame. Not getting follow through here yet either. So I can know without even looking that the LTC BTC chart is holding up with some upside right now. But we're testing the support of 100 psychological, we'll just call it. 99 comes next. And then 98.30 weekly time frame. Want to have the broader picture. Look at the exponential support. There's a perfect example of why I'm watching it just as a visual guide. And at this point, that level is in the upper 80s. Next week, it would be just under $90 to be watching. Weekly consolidation underway after our bearish reversal candlesticks. We got the heads up on the weekly candlesticks. All we needed was the follow through on the daily chart from tightening ranges, which ended up happening. So bears have control. Anything on the 4 hour time frame under 105.59 is just a lower high. If we change the 4 hour trend on Litecoin, we zoom out to the daily chart and we look for a lower high compared to 116.65. XRP USD stayed in its tightening range. I want to condense this one a little bit for clarity as well. Maybe it's on the weekly here. Nah. I want to see a 4-day chart really, but 2-day chart's fairly good with the high, low of the pullback, almost a double top, and now the bulls must hold 356 to stay in a tightening range. And it's not your picture perfect equilibrium, but it has the makings of that setup, and we'll look for that higher low to form compared to 3566. So bears in control, 4 hour time frame confirming the bear flag convincingly. Anything under 418 is just a lower high on the 4 hour time frame. And if we change the 4 hour trend, we zoom out to the daily, and anything under 4644 is just a lower high on the daily. BNB. Daily uptrend is lost, which means zoom out and look for a weekly higher low to form. Look at that exponential support right off of it on the weekly. That's currently down around $25. Bearish reversal doji was also an inside bar breaking bearish. So 4 hour confirming the bear flag, not very convincingly, but again, the correlation to Bitcoin and Binance has picked up significantly over the last week of trading at least. 4 hour lower high is 3147. Change the 4 hour trend, and anything under 3435 is just a lower high. So a very clear shift has gone underway. And that changes our perspective. It changes the signals that we use. So if I'm using the alert system, I'm turning off the 15-minute oversold climax alerts, and I'm turning on the 4 hour oversold climax alert, and that's going to start getting my attention. We'll check back in tomorrow and see if that signal does go off, as it's getting pretty close, and it actually might be just about to go off here. So we'll keep an eye on how that ends up playing out. But the bottom line is, bears are now in the driver's seat. As far as the daily 4 hour and all these time frames are concerned, we're looking for weekly higher lows, but we're patiently waiting for those weekly higher lows to be set. We don't have to nail the bottom to benefit from weekly higher lows. We can patiently wait, The first signal would be a 4-hour trend change, but that's an early signal that can very easily be a false signal. So if you're trying to get in on some of these earlier signals, the risk to reward is higher, but you can place stop losses and hope to nail that weekly high or low. For me personally, my game plan is going to be only playing very extreme 4-hour oversold flushes. And if we don't get very extreme 4-hour levels, then I am personally just going to patiently wait until we approach my rough visual targets on the weekly time frames, and then from there I will hone in and establish game plans sometime in the next week or so as to how I'm going to make my entries. And maybe it's partial positions scaling in around those levels regardless of whether we see the bulls showing up or not, or maybe it's waiting for a 4-hour trend change once Bitcoin drops down to fill that gap in the low $7,000 range. That might be enough for me to look to start establishing a position. So overall, that's where we stand. Sorry, it's a bit speedy here as I got stocks trades I'm in the middle of and live streams to do and all this stuff. But that's the check-in for now. Congrats to the Bears. And hopefully bulls have protected positions enough to be out if you're in shorter term positions. 70, pretty much 8,000 breaking. If 8,000 breaks you, here's a way where you can get ahead of all stop losses triggering. If you look at this chart, 79.72 is our key daily high or low and must hold level for the bulls. That level breaking is going to trigger stop levels. If 8,000 psychological breaks, which is just $28 above that, the odds that this is going to break right after it are extremely high. So I can potentially put my stop loss at 79.99, get stopped out. There will be some stop losses on 8,000, but I won't have to deal with the wave of stop losses triggering under 79.72. And if exiting at that level, you currently have the ability to rebuy Bitcoin 5% cheaper. And that's only after 1 day. So we'll see how much pullback we get. We'll see how much follow through the bears get. Keep an eye out for those bear articles to start coming out. We certainly know that they're going to be coming soon. And keep an eye on the weekly longer term time frames. Weekly higher lows are anticipated, and how soon they form is going to give us some implications on whether we get continuation or tightening ranges through the summer, essentially. Thanks again. Do good things. No end of the video here. See you soon.